The sun had just begun to rise over the small, quiet hills of Odd, West Virginia, a place where news usually traveled slower than the fog that rolled down from the mountains. But not this time. The Whittaker family, once known only to their neighbors and a few scattered locals, had become a national obsession. And now that obsession was turning dark. It began with a report, a strange one. Someone had called authorities about unwanted persons trespassing on Tommy Creek Road, where the Whittakers lived. A man and a woman in a black Chevy Silverado with North Carolina plates were seen filming the property, refusing to leave when asked. They had cameras, microphones, and what looked like recording equipment. It was the second time that day they'd shown up. Locals whispered, were they journalists, fans, or something else entirely? The truth was harder to find. Some said they were connected to one of the YouTube channels still posting old footage of the Whittakers, cashing in on ad revenue and memberships. Others suspected they were investigators, not official ones, but internet sleuths desperate to uncover some hidden truth about where all the money had gone. The question no one could seem to answer was simple. Who was behind all this pressure, and why now? The Whittakers' story had once been one of curiosity and sympathy, a family living on the margins, isolated by geography, poverty, and rumor. When filmmaker Mark Lyda introduced them to the world through soft white underbelly, millions watched with fascination and heartbreak. People sent money, letters, and gifts. Others came in person, as if visiting a living exhibit. But fame has a cruel appetite. It gives before it takes, and when it takes, it rarely leaves anything behind. After the cameras stopped rolling, the Whittakers were left with strangers' expectations and strangers' money. That money was supposed to help, to fix, to heal. Instead, it fractured everything. When new figures like Eric Carroll and Patrick Rower entered the picture, they became both saviors and suspects in the eyes of the public. Donations poured in, fundraisers popped up, and soon, questions about where it all went began to swirl. Now, those questions were louder than ever. On social media, a new post appeared late one night on a fan page dedicated to Patrick, or what was left of it. The account claimed to set the record straight about recent developments. From what I've read, Eric and his attorney have reached an agreement for a cash amount for the Whittaker family, and they have been paid. Patrick, however, has not fulfilled his obligation. The post didn't show receipts, dates, or proof, just statements. It was signed by someone no one had ever heard of before. Within hours, it was shared hundreds of times, sparking yet another wave of speculation. Supporters of Eric Carroll argued this was validation, proof that he'd made good on his promises. Detractors saw it as a deflection, a story planted to save face. And in the middle of it all, the Whittakers, who said nothing. Betty Whittaker, once the quiet matriarch at the center of all this, was no longer giving interviews. Neighbors said she rarely came outside. Others claimed she'd been in poor health. Still others swore they saw her talking to a lawyer in Beckley. The family's silence only made the speculation grow louder. YouTube creators began uploading videos titled, "Where is Betty Whittaker now?" and "Proof the money never got there," each claiming to have exclusive information. But their evidence was always the same: screenshots, half-quotes, recycled speculation. One channel even played a police scanner recording from the day of the Tommy Creek Road incident, using it as proof that people were being sent to intimidate the family. Another channel went further, suggesting that certain people connected to the previous fundraisers were trying to keep Betty quiet. There was no proof of that either, but it didn't stop the clicks. Meanwhile, behind the noise, a few real facts were emerging. Investigators in Raleigh County had quietly confirmed that multiple complaints involving the Whittakers were still active, one about welfare checks, another about online harassment. But the most sensitive one involved finances. That investigation, according to a source familiar with the matter, focused on the money sent on behalf of the Whittakers. The issue wasn't just whether the family received it, it was who handled it. Some donations had gone directly to accounts managed by Patrick Rohr, others to Eric Carroll's organization. Still more had been filtered through unofficial fundraisers and private PayPal or Cash App accounts run by volunteers. By the time authorities tried to piece it together, the money trail had splintered in a dozen directions. Some records showed transfers, others didn't. A few payments matched, but most didn't. And through it all, neither Patrick nor Eric seemed to have the paperwork that could settle the matter for good. That was when a new post hit social media, this time from someone claiming to be close to the investigation. From what's been verified, Patrick tried to use a vehicle he gave the Whittakers as partial payment for what he owed. They refused it. Eric, meanwhile, reached a private agreement with the family and paid his portion quietly. Patrick did not. Again, no names, no documents, no verifiable sources, just the same fog of rumor and reaction. But one comment beneath that post stood out. If Eric really paid them, why hasn't he shown proof? A receipt, a check, anything? That question echoed across hundreds of threads. Because that's what this entire saga had come down to, proof. Not stories. Not statements. Not speculation. Just proof. And yet, none appeared. Locals in Odd started seeing more strange vehicles driving past the Whittaker home, unfamiliar cars slowing down near the property, sometimes stopping to take photos. Some even walked right up to the porch, snapping pictures and leaving quickly. When confronted, they'd say they were just fans, or that they were doing research. But one neighbor had had enough. "These people don't care about helping," he said. "They just want to film the wreckage. They come here to take, not to give." To the people of Odd, it wasn't a mystery anymore. It was harassment. As for the social media debate, it had turned into an all-out war. Supporters of Eric Carroll began claiming that he had closed the chapter by settling with the family. They pointed to unverified screenshots of supposed text exchanges as proof. But critics countered, arguing that without receipts, everything was just performance, an effort to clear names before the investigation concluded. Then, something new happened. A second post surfaced, this time from a person using a freshly created account. "I can confirm the Whittakers received their share. Larry was seen shopping for a car, and someone even gifted them a van. Patrick tried to pass off his old vehicle as payment, but they refused. Eric followed through, Patrick didn't." The account disappeared within hours. Deleted, wiped clean. The comments that followed were a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. "Another fake," someone wrote. "Why does every truth come from a ghost account?" No one could answer that. Eric, for his part, stayed quiet. Since the previous controversy about the alleged fraud investigation, he had stopped responding to online chatter. He focused on his work, spoke only through his lawyer, and made no public statements about the Whittakers or the money. Those close to him said he was burned out. Others said he was waiting for the right time. But silence in the digital age is never neutral. To some, it's guilt. To others, it's grace. And that silence was now being filled by others. People who claimed to know, people who swore to have seen documents, people who seemed desperate to be part of the story. They posted updates, shared exclusive leaks, and even claimed to have friends in law enforcement. But when pressed, none could show verifiable evidence. One content creator summed it up best during a live stream. "Everybody's talking, but nobody's proving." Meanwhile, time kept passing, and the Whittakers' lives moved on, though no one seemed to notice. Larry was spotted around town, still quiet, still kind, sometimes sitting outside the small gas station off Route 3. He didn't speak much about the situation, but when someone asked if he was okay, He simply said, "People talk too much. They don't listen enough." And maybe that was the truest thing anyone had said about the whole ordeal. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the money. It wasn't even about the Whittakers anymore. It was about the storm that surrounded them, a storm made of attention, assumptions, and ambition. And somewhere in the middle of it all, the truth was still missing, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally slow down long enough to find it. Comment below. Do you think someone is intentionally keeping the truth about the Whittaker money hidden? Or is it just chaos and miscommunication that spiraled out of control? Hey everyone, before we get into the next part, I've got something special to share with you. If you're all about making your home smarter, cozier, and just a little bit more you, then you've got to check this out. We've partnered with Trekbow.com, a place built for people who love clever solutions and everyday comfort. From wellness and skincare must-haves to smart home gadgets, heated gear, and lifestyle tech, Trekbow is packed with products that make life easier, warmer, and way more fun. I've personally picked some of my favorite finds, things that actually work, look great, and make your day smoother. Whether it's something to simplify your morning routine, help you unwind after a long day, or bring a little innovation into your home, you'll find it there. So before you scroll past, take a quick look at Trekbow.com. Trust me, it's full of discoveries waiting to make your everyday better. Alright, now let's get back to it, because after this video, you're definitely going to want to explore what Trekbow has in store for the Whittaker household community. By the time fall settled into the hills of Odd, the story had spread far beyond West Virginia. It wasn't just a local curiosity anymore. It was national gossip, the kind that spread through Reddit threads, Facebook groups, and late-night YouTube live streams. Everyone claimed to know the truth, yet every version of the truth was different. Some said Eric Carroll had finally paid the Whittakers what they were owed after legal threats. Others said the payment never happened. A few swore they saw Larry with cash in hand, while others claimed the family was as broke as ever. And in the middle of it all, one fact was certain: no one had shown a single verifiable receipt. The first crack in the noise came from a small YouTube channel run by a woman named Susan, known online as Appalachian Truth Tellers. She had built her following on commentary about rural stories, often mixing skepticism with sensationalism. In one of her new videos, titled, "Where's the Money, Eric?" she held up screenshots of comments, text messages, and social media posts. "I don't know who's lying," she said. "But if money changed hands, there should be a record. If Eric paid the Whittakers, where's the proof? And if Patrick didn't, why is he still online like nothing happened?" The video gained traction fast, shared across multiple fan groups. It reignited an old rivalry between supporters of the two men. Eric's followers defended him, saying he was done explaining himself. Patrick's defenders accused Susan of bias and clout chasing. In between the shouting, someone dropped a bombshell in the comments section. "Larry got a van. Check your facts." That one sentence sparked a whole new wave of confusion. The van story, as it came to be known, spread like wildfire. Supposedly, someone had gifted Larry and Betty a van after Eric's alleged settlement. But when locals were asked about it, no one could confirm where it came from or who paid for it. One resident told a local podcaster, "They had a van, but that thing looked like it had been sitting for years. Don't know if it runs. Don't know who gave it." Another claimed they saw Larry driving it through town. Then someone else said it was gone, towed off, they said, after breaking down. Just like everything else in the Whittaker saga, the story of the van ended where it began, in uncertainty. Meanwhile, the Whittaker family YouTube channel was still active. Videos that Eric had helped produce months earlier remained online. Membership buttons were still visible, meaning the channel was monetized. Fans noticed. If the family's not getting that money, who is? One viewer asked under a recent upload. No one answered. An investigation by an independent blogger showed that the account linked to the channel's revenue hadn't been changed since before the fallout, suggesting whoever originally managed it still had access. That was most likely Eric or Patrick. But here was the catch. Both men denied running it anymore. Patrick, in a brief Facebook comment, wrote, "I no longer control or profit from the Whittaker content. Don't believe the lies." Eric stayed silent. And that silence became its own kind of noise. Behind the scenes, tensions were rising. A private message thread leaked from one of the moderator groups tied to a Whittaker fan page showed a heated exchange. Moderator A: "We can't keep letting people spread lies about Eric. He's already been cleared by the lawyer." Moderator B: "Then show the proof or stop talking about it. You're making it worse." Moderator C: "I've seen something. Not a receipt, but confirmation he settled. I'm not posting it." The messages ended there. It wasn't much, but it showed that even within the support circles, trust was fracturing. For the Whittakers themselves, the media circus hadn't stopped. It had simply gone quieter in public and more invasive in private. People still showed up at the property uninvited. Neighbors reported seeing cars stop near the home and people stepping out with cameras, pretending to document the area. One neighbor called it poverty tourism. Another described it more bluntly, exploitation dressed as empathy. Betty had stopped answering the door. Larry mostly stayed outside, silent and watchful, telling visitors to leave. But one afternoon, a local pastor visited to drop off groceries. He later told a friend that Betty said something strange, something that didn't make the news. "She told me," the pastor said, "that people keep calling her phone, asking for her signature. Some say it's for a closure document. Some say it's about donations. She doesn't understand half of what they're saying, but she's scared to sign anything now." If true, that meant someone was still trying to get something from the family, even after everything. Online, speculation took on a life of its own. A Reddit thread titled, "The Whittaker Money Mystery," became a hub for amateur detectives. People analyzed PayPal logs, timestamps, and old videos to try and piece together the timeline of who owed what to whom. One user claimed they had a friend who worked at a small bank near Beckley. There was a deposit made under Larry's name, about $6,800, from a business account tied to an LLC based in Georgia, they wrote. If true, that could point to Eric Carroll, who lived in Georgia. But the post was removed hours later for unverified information. Still, that number, $6,800, began circulating everywhere. It became proof, to some, that Eric had paid. Others said it was coincidence. The truth remained somewhere in between, as always. A new voice entered the conversation next, an online personality named Tristan, who claimed to have connections in law enforcement. In a live stream that peaked at nearly 12,000 viewers, Tristan declared, "Patrick and Eric both called protective services on the Whittakers. Both of them. That's why the state stepped in." He paused dramatically, letting the chat explode with reactions. But here's the part nobody's talking about. It wasn't because they wanted to hurt the family. It was to force intervention before more damage happened. That's what I was told. Whether or not any of that was true, the line between truth and theory was gone. Now, everything, every quote, every rumor, every screenshot, was treated as evidence. For those following the saga from afar, the story had shifted from sympathy to suspicion. What began as concern for a struggling Appalachian family had devolved into digital trench warfare, with each faction fighting for their version of justice. Eric's defenders portrayed him as a man unfairly dragged into scandal. Patrick's camp insisted he was the one trying to help the Whittakers long after Eric abandoned them. And those who supported neither said the real victims were the family, Once loved, now forgotten, except when convenient. Even within the Whittakers fan base, people were beginning to question their own involvement. Did we help? One commenter asked. Or did we just feed the machine that's destroying them? As for the so-called proof, the only tangible document anyone could find was a GoFundMe summary from months earlier showing that roughly $42,000 had been raised for the Whittaker family renovation project. But there was no breakdown of where that money went. According to one former volunteer, it was supposed to be divided between materials, medical expenses, and compensation. But there was no accountant. Everything was handshake deals and messages. When she tried to follow up months later, she said she got blocked by both Patrick and one of the page admins. The phrase she used to describe it stuck with many: good intentions, bad execution, and no paper trail. Then came the most shocking part: an email leak. A screenshot circulated online allegedly showing a message between Patrick and another individual discussing remaining funds and revenue distribution. The message referenced a $7,000 balance and pending settlement. Critics said it proved nothing. Supporters said it proved everything. But one line stood out more than anything else: let's hold off showing any receipts until Eric goes public first. The image was blurry. The sender's address was half redacted. And yet, that one sentence became the headline across several gossip channels within hours. Meanwhile, on the ground in Odd, the family's situation hadn't improved. Their septic issue remained unresolved. The house was still in disrepair. Winter was approaching again, and people online who once promised to help had moved on to the next trending tragedy. What lingered was the aftertaste, the sense that something deeply wrong had happened, but no one was willing to own it. In the middle of a recent live stream about another Appalachian story, Susan from Appalachian Truth Tellers looked straight into the camera and sighed. It's not just about the Whittakers anymore. It's about how we, as a society, treat people like them. We say we care, until caring stops getting clicks. She closed the laptop, her reflection fading from the screen. Comment below. Do you think the missing proof means a cover-up? Or is it possible everyone involved is just too deep in confusion to tell the truth anymore? By early winter, the quiet corners of Odd, West Virginia, had once again become the unwilling stage for the internet's most tangled drama. The air was colder, the days shorter, and the truth harder to find than ever. The rumors about money had spiraled so far that no one knew what to believe. People claimed they'd seen checks. Others said those checks bounced. Some said the Whittakers were preparing to leave their home. Others said they were being forced out. The only thing that everyone seemed to agree on was this: someone, somewhere, was still pulling strings. It started again with a live stream, this time not from the usual YouTubers or bloggers, but from a small-town Facebook page that called itself Real Appalachian Voices. The page had been quiet for months, posting only sporadically about local weather and community events. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, they went live. A woman's voice came through, rough and tired but steady. "Y'all think you know what's going on with the Whittakers," she said. "But you don't. You're being fed stories, half-truths, by people who made money off them and are now trying to clean their names." The chat blew up instantly. Thousands of comments poured in. The woman continued. "Betty told me herself, people keep showing up with papers, saying they're here to help. But they ain't helpin'. They're talkin'. One of 'em even said they'd represent her for free. She don't even know what that means." She paused. "Some of y'all are asking where the money went. Well, I'll tell you, it didn't go to the Whittakers." The feed cut out right after that. When it came back on, the video was gone. Deleted. But not before someone downloaded it. Within hours, clips of the stream were reposted across YouTube, Reddit, and TikTok. Everyone wanted to know who the woman was. Some claimed it was a former volunteer. Others said it was one of Betty's relatives. No one could prove it. But the timing was uncanny. It came just days after new rumors surfaced that Eric Carroll had been contacted by the West Virginia State Police regarding unresolved matters. The phrase, unresolved matters, became the internet's newest obsession. In one of the few verified updates from official sources, a local paper mentioned that multiple ongoing investigations remain active concerning the distribution of charitable funds related to the Whittaker family. It didn't name anyone directly, but everyone already had their guesses. Eric's camp said this was about Patrick mishandling funds. Patrick's supporters claimed Eric was trying to rewrite history. Others blamed the moderators who'd run donation groups without oversight. It was a mess, one built on confusion, mistrust, and the illusion of online transparency. The more people dug, the stranger things became. A private Facebook group dedicated to justice for the Whittakers leaked screenshots showing arguments between supposed insiders. One user claimed to have bank records showing that $8,000 had been transferred to the wrong account. Another user accused them of lying for views. A third person, who said they'd volunteered during the early fundraisers, claimed they had been told not to ask questions about where the GoFundMe money went. Their final post before deactivating their account said only this: "I regret getting involved. I thought I was helping." Meanwhile, the Whittakers' property became a kind of pilgrimage site for curiosity seekers. Cars lined up along the narrow road. Some visitors dropped off food and supplies. Others came with cameras, hoping to capture the real story. Larry, always patient but tired, began turning people away. "No more," he'd say. "No more pictures." Betty rarely came outside. Those who saw her said she looked frail, quieter than before, like someone who'd lost faith in the idea of kindness. According to one neighbor, she'd been told to expect official visitors soon, people who wanted to talk about financial reconciliation. But those visitors never came. Instead, what arrived were more phone calls, more offers, more confusion. Back online, the factions grew even louder. A prominent YouTuber named Mountain Media Man released a 45-minute breakdown claiming that new evidence proved Eric Carroll had, in fact, paid part of what he owed to the Whittakers through a verbal settlement. He showed blurry screenshots of what he said were text exchanges between Eric and a lawyer. "Payment completed, settlement finalized," one line read. But the problem was obvious. There was no date, no amount, no context. And yet, within hours, the clip had been viewed nearly 100,000 times. Underneath, the comments section was divided right down the middle. Finally, some proof. That's fake as hell. Why would Eric hide it if he really did pay? Where's Patrick's receipts then? Everyone had a theory. Nobody had the truth. Then came the biggest twist yet. A statement appeared on a private Reddit page allegedly from a person connected to the legal side of the Whittaker situation. Neither Eric nor Patrick have provided official documentation of payment. There has been discussion of informal settlements, but none verified by the family or by authorities. That post sent shockwaves through the fanbase. If true, it meant both men had exaggerated, or worse, lied, about resolving things. But before anyone could confirm, the Reddit account vanished. Deleted. The internet had eaten its own source again. Off-screen, though, something more tangible was happening. Local officials confirmed that representatives from a state welfare agency had visited the Whittaker home. They were checking on living conditions and ongoing support plans. It wasn't clear if this visit was routine or connected to the chaos online. But according to one local who spoke to reporters, the timing was too convenient to ignore. "The state don't just show up like that," he said. "Someone called him. Somebody always calls him." The question was, who? Meanwhile, one of Patrick's former associates gave an interview to a small independent podcast. They claimed Patrick was being harassed daily by people demanding proof he paid the Whittakers. "He's not the villain people make him out to be," they said. "But he didn't keep good records. None of them did. They handled tens of thousands of dollars like it was a bake sale." That single quote summed up the entire mess better than any viral post. The internet had taken a fragile family and turned them into a profit machine, then left behind a trail of confusion too tangled for anyone to clean up. But it wasn't over yet. A new video surfaced, this time from someone claiming to be close to Betty. The clip showed a woman's voice reading from a piece of paper, shaky and quiet. "We never got what they said. We don't know who's telling the truth no more. People keep calling. They say they helping, but it don't feel like help. It feels like somebody watching us all the time." The voice was haunting. The emotion real. Was it really Betty? No one knew. But to many viewers, it didn't matter. It felt real, and that was enough to reignite the outrage. YouTube thumbnails lit up, "Betty speaks out, her side of the story." Every creator wanted a piece of it. Every headline promised the inside truth. But what none of them noticed, or wanted to notice, was that with every upload, every repost, the Whittakers were being dragged further into the same storm that had already broken them. By December, public interest had reached a fever pitch again. Dozens of creators, advocates, and former insiders began demanding that all donation records be made public. They wanted full transparency. Some even started contacting GoFundMe directly, asking for confirmation that funds had reached their intended recipients. The company, citing privacy laws, declined to release any details. And just like that, the trail went cold again. In the end, the situation had become a mirror, reflecting not just the Whittakers' pain, but everyone's part in it. Eric's silence, Patrick's denial, the fans' obsession, and the creators' hunger for views, they had all blended together into a single machine that fed on confusion. There was no villain left to point at, no hero to praise. Only unanswered questions that echoed through every comment section and livestream. Who's telling the truth? Who's hiding it? And why are the Whittakers still the ones paying the price? Comment below. Do you think anyone will ever come forward with real proof? Or will the truth about the Whittaker money forever stay buried under rumors and deleted posts? The cold wind that swept through Odd, West Virginia, in January carried with it the kind of quiet that comes only after too much noise. The story that had once consumed the internet was finally running out of oxygen, but not resolution. For months, people had debated who paid what, who lied, who filmed, who stole. But now, even the loudest voices were fading. The views were dropping, the threads going stale. The only ones still talking were those who couldn't let go, the ones who cared less about fame and more about closure. And closure was something the Whittakers would never fully get. It was Larry who was first spotted again. Locals said he was sitting outside the old store near the post office, drinking a cola, alone. When asked how things were going, he gave the same answer every time. "We're fine. Just want peace." Peace, the one thing money couldn't buy. Because despite all the claims, no real proof of payment had ever surfaced. Not one receipt, one transfer slip, one contract. Not from Eric. Not from Patrick. Not from any of the so-called helpers. Every exclusive update that had once gone viral was now buried beneath broken links and deleted posts. The internet had moved on, but the people at the center of it were still living in the wreckage. A few weeks later, a reporter from a small Appalachian news outlet drove to Odd. She didn't come with a camera or a microphone, just a notebook. What she found wasn't scandal. It was sadness. Betty, frail and quiet, said little. When asked about the money, she only shook her head. People said they'd help, she whispered. But they just talked. Always talking. She said she still got calls sometimes. People promising to fix things, asking her to sign something. She didn't answer anymore. She'd learned that every phone call came with strings. The reporter's article never went viral. But in a few hundred quiet words, she said what no one else had managed to say in a year of speculation. The Whittaker family doesn't need cameras or conspiracies. They need dignity. Back online, one last burst of controversy lit up the conversation. A new account on Reddit claimed to have the final receipts, screenshots showing that Eric had indeed sent money to a relative of the Whittakers. But within minutes, users noticed something off. The font was wrong. The timestamps didn't match. The images were doctored. It was fake. Another layer of noise in a story built on it. When moderators removed the post, one comment lingered at the bottom. We've all become part of the problem. No one argued. A few people kept pushing for accountability. One woman started a petition demanding transparency in online fundraisers involving vulnerable families. She gathered over 10,000 signatures. Others reached out directly to the state, asking for updates on the investigations. The official reply was brief. The matter remains confidential. No further comment. That was it. No closure, no justice, just a wall of silence. By spring, most of the channels that had built their fame on the Whittakers had pivoted to new topics. New families, new dramas, new, exclusive interviews. But every once in a while, someone would post an old clip. Larry smiling, Betty talking softly to a visitor, the family sitting together in the yard. And for a moment, people remembered why they'd cared in the first place. The comments were quieter now. More reflective. I wish we'd protected them better. They never asked for any of this. We failed them. It wasn't anger anymore. It was regret. The last time anyone heard from Betty directly was through a handwritten note shared by a neighbor. It wasn't long. It wasn't angry. It was simply human. We're okay. We just want to be left alone now. Thank you to those who meant well. Please, no more cameras. No more stories. Just let us live. That note spread online. But this time, no one twisted it. No one argued or debated its meaning. For once, everyone seemed to understand. Because after everything, the lies, the live streams, the endless speculation, that small, shaky handwriting said more than 1,000 hours of footage ever could. And so, the Whittakers story, once the internet's favorite tragedy, finally came to a quiet end. Not with a courtroom revelation or a confession, but with a silence that felt almost sacred. No more fundraisers. No more updates. Just a family trying, at last, to find peace in a world that refused to give it to them. Whether anyone truly paid them, whether justice was ever served, it no longer mattered. Because the cost of the truth had already been too high. The only thing left was a question that no one could answer anymore. Who was really helping the Whittakers, and who was just helping themselves? Comment below. After everything that's happened, the silence, the scams, the endless noise, do you think the world owes the Whittakers an apology, or is the damage simply beyond repair? Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.